Good morning and welcome in. This is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel.
You are a vital part of our game.
Thank you for having me on.
All the way to the green. Woo! Boy, was that fun.
I've always wanted to be on 5 Clubs. Thanks, Gary.
Good morning. Welcome into 5 Clubs here on a Tuesday. Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. I am Gary Williams, and this program always presented by Century Insurance. They do business insurance. They also love golf, invested in it deeply. The First Tee, the United States Golf Association, back on the PGA Tour. They will sponsor that great event at Torrey Pines in 2027, and of course right here at 5 Clubs. But if you want to evaluate your business insurance needs, do it with them. They want to be right by you at Century Insurance. On this Tuesday, well, the commissioner of the PGA Tour, he's been the CEO here for a while, but now the commissioner as well, that's Brian Rolapp. He's going to speak here in a couple of hours, and he's very good at presenting information. So he talks today. I will talk. I'm a gas bag, and I will give you some thoughts about Brandt Snedeker and the decisions now, knowing the 6 that he's got that automatically qualified by virtue of what transpired Sunday at the BMW Championship. And I will make the case for Gary Woodland, and I'll also explain that all these cases are just that. It's the captain's picks. This is not an all-star game, and that's one of the things that I think has been a challenge on the United States side, President's Cup and Ryder Cup. Speaking of which, Paul McGinley, he knows how to pick players. He knows how to coach them up, too, because he did it expertly in 2014 at Glen Eagles, a victorious Ryder Cup captain. He's also contributing at the Walker Cup this year. I'll ask him about that, but I'll also ask him about the DP World Tour, where he has a very important voice, because what they've done over the past decade, where they are going long term, but also immediately, I think they're getting a boost with what is transpiring now with the uncertainty of LIV, but also get his view of Rory McIlroy, not only when it comes to this week at Eastlake, but more importantly, the balance of the window of prime. And I think the window is still very much open for Rory. So looking forward to talking to Paul McGinley. But let me start with 2 things. First, Brian Rolapp. Because Brian Rolapp comes from a league, the National Football League, which in a lot of people's eyes and minds can't do anything wrong. They're not perfect, but they have the 800-pound gorilla. And when those footballs start getting kicked off, people just get giddy. And they get disoriented because they're so happy with their Sunday ticket. But Brian Rolapp knows that that Sunday ticket come week 17, 18, and then the last week of the regular season, it ain't a sure thing. He's not the only one who knows that. Certainly Adam Silver at the NBA knows, and certainly so do the people at Major League Baseball. They know that the end of the regular season, it's not a sure thing. And one of the reasons why we've seen the advent of wild card teams and wild card weekends, and let's add more teams, and let's do a play-in game in the NBA. Let's get more teams in the mix. Ultimately, it's about one thing. It's about money. But it's also because those other things that when we used to have one team representing one league and one representing the other back in the olden days, that it was just about a few teams. And for the PGA Tour, it's been about less and less. And I think that that's a good thing. When the PGA Tour added playoffs and 125 got in, I'm going, what's the difference between that and employment? There wasn't any. And Brian Rolapp is getting ready to present this morning, I think, more information. I don't think we're going to get all of it, and nor should we. This is a fluid situation. But it appears that we're going to get a better understanding of what the playoffs, which I think the brand is going into the trash bin, and that's fine. It served, I thought, a purpose. Wasn't perfect, never was going to be. It's golf. It's not Major League Baseball, let alone the National Football League. So I think what we're going to get is that at the end of the regular season, you should feel that, which again is not a sure thing, Just ask the National Football League. And I can promise you that come the first week in January, we're going to look at the card and go, woo, a lot of stinkers. Nobody's playing their starters because the seeding is already set. I think we're going to know what that number is into the postseason, and we're going to know that the gravity of the last week of the regular season can't be more than just a couple of guys making their way into that first postseason event. That I think we're going to know for sure. And we're also going to know for sure in less than 2 hours that match play is coming. And I'm fine with it because it's just a postseason and it's a showcase. And I've never struggled to know who was the best team or player over the course of the regular season. And the postseason's just that. Because when Tom Brady took that undefeated season to Glendale and my New York Football Giants took him out, I knew who the best team was over the course of the season. But for one glorious Sunday and that defensive front, yes, the Giants were better that day. And that's why match play is going to be okay with me, and we're going to know that. Now, the other item that is up for grabs this week is the President's Cup, because Brandt Snedeker will be omnipresent, not that he hasn't been behind the scenes, and he's got to determine who the remaining members of his roster are going to be. He knows who the 6 automatics are, and that gets me to something else. I will not jump up and down, whether it be next week or next year when it comes to the Ryder Cup and Jim Furyk making picks. Now, I may have some misgivings about why him, but it's his team. And he's going to fill it out the way he should. Now, I will tell you that I think one player for certain should be on that team, and I don't care what happens at Eastlake, and that's Gary Woodland. Because there are a handful of players that start this week, and several who cannot improve themselves because they're not even at Eastlake. So doesn't that tell you, if you want to use that as a baseline, as to why someone should have more merit to be on the team than the others? Justin Thomas ain't at Eastlake, and Ben Griffin's not at Eastlake, and there are a couple others that are in front of Gary Woodland on the point standings that are not at Eastlake. But he is, and he's won this year, and he's contended more than some of these other players who are going to likely be on the team. But I will say a couple things about Gary as it relates to why he should be on the team. He's having the best season he's had since he was last at Eastlake in 2019. He's overcome something, or he's managing something, because overcome would suggest that he's got it in the rearview mirror. It's evident that he doesn't. The vigilance that he's got to show, and the anxiety and the uneasiness that he has to live with. Gary Woodland is also built for Medina. He is. He is somebody who at 42 years of age turns up the dial to a level that nobody else can. And that is rewarded there more than anything else. And he's also refined his skill set. He is better chipping and putting the ball, and give him a partner. And here's the last thing, which is not intangible to me. He knows the value of team. There is not a guy on that roster that won't go, I'll play with him in foursomes, give me him in 4-ball. He has been a team athlete into his college career. And whether he is going to be good enough to be in the conversation, I actually think he will. For a Dare Manor in the Ryder Cup, that remains to be seen. But this year, right now, put him on the team. And it's not charity. He has earned it. We take a break now. When we continue, looking forward, as I always do, to a conversation with Paul McGinley about what's transpiring in the entire landscape of men's professional golf and the benefit it could have on the DP World Tour. And why the Walker Cup for him now? I think I know a few of the reasons. And a little Rory reset for him before the final event for him on the PGA Tour. Tuesday here on Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio. Brian Rolap going to speak later on this morning. Some thoughts from Rex Hoggard to boot. Good to have you with us. Back with Paul McGinley right after this. Back in on this Tuesday here on Golf Channel, PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. Always appreciate this conversation when we can have it. He was a victorious Ryder Cup captain in 2014 for Europe. He's been on a Walker Cup team. He's going to contribute this year to a place he loves. And of course, he's a huge voice and a big part of why Live From is such a special property for people who love golf in this country. He, of course, is Paul McGinley. Paul, my friend, how you doing?
I'm good, Gary. Thank you for that nice introduction.
Well, it's earned because I'm telling you, you look refreshed after a couple weeks away from Brandel. You feel resuscitated from his pontificating, which, again, you guys have such a great way about getting through those shows and educating and creating debate. So let me ask you about something that is percolating, and that is the DP World Tour. Because this turbulence and uncertainty with LIV, it appears that the DP World Tour could be a landing space for a number of those players. Do you think that's a reasonable position to have right now?
I think so, yeah. I think, to be honest, I don't think you needed to be Einstein to predict what was going to happen in time with LIV. And from 4 years ago, people were thinking, okay, if LIV does fold and it probably is going to be a short window, where is everybody going to land? Where are the players going to land? And the DP World Tour was the obvious place for that to happen. And it looks like that could well be the case. And of course, then the PGA Tour would have some kind of an indirect influence, obviously, because of the strategic alignment at this moment in time. But yeah, I mean, I look back through the LIV years and it's been an absolute windfall, phenomenal for all players in the game. Not just the guys who've gone to LIV who got paid a huge amount of money, obviously, but the guys who stayed in the PGA Tour levered the position of having competition on the pitch to gain huge increases in prize funds as well as other ancillary costs that kind of came their ways too, or benefits rather that came their way too. So it's been an absolute windfall for the players, there's no doubt, and the agents and the caddies and the coaches and anybody that's working off percentages. But, is the game in a better place because of it? And I don't think it is. I think the game is now left with huge overheads, certainly the professional game with massive overheads, massive prize funnies, huge prize funds that are going to be very difficult to attain and pay year in, year out. So the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour are under a huge pressure now going forward as a result. So listen to see how that's all going to be navigated.
Paul, it's inarguable about the windfall. And I know that you've been part of these conversations, particularly when Brandel has taken this stance about being on LIV for certain players has been to the detriment of whether it be their growth, their major championship performance. Koepka won a major while being a member at LIV. Bryson is contended in several and obviously won that U.S. Open as a member of LIV. Do you think that time is required for us to assess whether it was detrimental to their ability to contend and win majors, or can you make that declaration now?
I think he can make that declaration now. I mean, Brooks won quite quickly from going on LIV, so he was still very much accustomed and used to playing 72-hole tournaments, and went on and won his major championship that way. Now Bryson was a little bit longer, but he's an outlier. I don't think you can kind of put him. I think Jon Rahm was definitely affected by it because when he went, he was the #1 player in the world. He was the Masters champion. He'd just come off a phenomenal Ryder Cup in Italy where he'd been sensational, the best player of the 24, and obviously his performances in majors have not been to that level since he's gone to LIV. So I mean, I think the best way to answer that question would be if you take the money out of it, Gary, if you took money out of the fact that LIV, but left the platform there of LIV and left the PGA Tour with both equitable prize funds, and you asked every one of those players, okay, you've got a chance to go to A or B and money is not a factor here, which one is going to prepare you better to winning major championships? And I think everybody would clearly have that answer, that it would be a PGA Tour and maybe a little bit of a DP World Tour schedule rather than a LIV schedule. So I think that's the fairest way of answering it without taking sides. It's not. It certainly wasn't a platform that was going to really prepare you for the difficulty of winning major championships. And I think that's the best way of answering that question.
Paul, you mentioned Jon Rahm. Do you see any type of lane for him to be on the PGA Tour at any point during 2027, or do you expect that the DP World Tour and a major championship schedule will be where we see him?
I don't think 2027. I mean, let's look at it from Brian Rollopp's point of view. The big line in the sand for Brian Rollopp is beginning of 2028 season.
Yep.
And as he comes towards the end of 2027, maybe a renegotiation of TV contracts, which is going to be a huge part of the business model of PGA Tour going forward. So in order to have those conversations, he's going to need all hands on deck. He's going to need as many of the best players in the world as possible aligned with the PGA Tour. So having Jon Rahm part of that conversation would certainly help him have the conversations that he needs to do in order to kind of maybe match or maybe exceed the money that he's getting from TV at the moment. So there's not a rush to get Jon Rahm back for 2027, but I would be very surprised should he come back to the PGA Tour, which looks very, very likely now, that he's not part of the conversation leading into 2028.
Rory went from not factoring at all in Memphis to touching the lead late on a Sunday in St. Louis. What do you think is his biggest challenge with? I think his prime window is still very open at 37 years of age. What do you think is his biggest challenge over the next 5 years in terms of winning, production, all of it?
I think motivation. Pointy elbows, as I keep saying about Rory. I mean, when he's mentally engaged with something, Gary, that's when he's at his best. I think his really poor performance 2 weeks ago in the FedEx is what led to him bouncing back and having a really good week last week. And often you see with Rory, a lot of disappointments are followed with really good performances in the weeks and months after that, and we saw that bounce back straight away. But it just shows you how talented this guy is. You know, he takes 3 weeks off, was it? He went away and he had a great holiday. Carly, as by his own admittance, hardly ever took the club for a 3-month period, a 3-week period. Comes back, plays terribly in a FedEx. You look at his stats; they were awful that week, and yet all of a sudden he's like, okay, I'll put a bit of effort in. I'll do some practice, and boom, here we go. The following weekend, he almost wins against the strongest field on the PGA Tour, and that shows you the level of talent that he has. And when you combine that with being mentally engaged, that's when he's going to be at his best. And even though the first prize in the FedEx is $25 million or $40 million, whatever the case may be, I don't think that's enough to really get him excited anymore. And so that challenge of what am I going to get excited about? Is it going to be PGA Tour wins? Is it going to be a certain title that he hasn't won before? Obviously the majors are certainly going to be something, and a Ryder Cup's going to be something that will certainly get him excited. But what is the thing that's going to keep him really motivated to get out there and get those pointy elbows up?
Yeah, I love your term. This is something I've said about him for years. When he can get into that bully mode, and whether it's a target that's internal. If it's anything, to your point, front foot, elbows out. But here's the thing that I wonder about, Paul, with the way that the schedule is for the majors, which are the big targets for him. He played 6 times before the Masters, and then he only played 3 times between the next 3 majors, 1 start between each major. I think that's challenging to be able to knock off rust, get your edge back between the next 3 majors, where I felt like he always has a build from the Middle East to the West Coast swing to getting his mind right, the technical aspects of it, and then pointed down Magnolia Lane. He doesn't have that luxury with the other 3. Is that something that could be a challenge?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think the evidence this year suggests that, Gary. This week and last week, BMW as well as the FedEx was the first time in the PGA Tour he played consecutive weeks, I believe, all season long. And, there he had one of his best weeks of the season. So, I think I take that point, and I think it's something that he will look at in terms of scheduling next year, playing only once in between each of the majors. Having said that, he did get in contention in 3 of the majors going into the Saturday and the Sunday. If you look at where he was after 36 holes in each of those 3 majors, obviously outside of the Masters, he was in the conversation going into the weekend, and then kind of fell away and didn't really contend over the weekend. So was the lack of competition going in there a reason for that? Possibly so. And I think it's something that he's going to have to look at. Scheduling is a challenge, particularly with the majors so condensed now. you don't get a lot of time between major championships before you're coming back to a next one. So I think it's a challenge for him, and maybe he needs to go in on the back of playing a little bit more. There's no doubt it's something I'm sure he's going to be looking at.
Well, 27, in addition to trying to do something nobody's done, which is 3 straight Masters tournament titles. It's a Ryder Cup year. It's Pebble Beach. It's the old course. Not that he needs additional, fuel for these major venues, but that's as good as it gets. I'm curious for you, because we have the Solheim Cup on deck, the Walker Cup, which you were a participant as a player, 1991 at Port Marnock. You're going to contribute. And we also have a President's Cup. When you look at the President's Cup, has there been anything about it that you think has benefited the system of USA Golf over the last 25 years?
I don't think so, no. I don't think, my personal view is I don't think America, if you want to call America President's Cup and Ryder Cup combined, they have not used the platform of the President's Cup to really prepare for the Ryder Cups. They go out and they win the President's Cup all the time, and normally by quite a big margin. You don't see a whole amount of preparation that goes into the President's Cup, then overlaying into the Ryder Cup the following year. So I think it could be used better. For example, I think in Europe, even though we have the old Seve Trophy, we call it the Hero Cup, and now I forget, we don't even know what it's called now, but we certainly use that as a huge platform for the young guys, and to the point that the people who work on the Ryder Cup behind the scenes, every single person who's engaged with the team works on that Hero Cup Seve Trophy the year before as well. So any of the rookies come in, we drive them through that. So they get relationships, they develop, they understand what goes on, because the same ethos, the same people, the same principles that are used in the Ryder Cup, we use at that. I don't think that's the case from what I understand in the President's Cup. I think it'd be used better. It'd going to be very interesting to see what Brandt Snedeker is going to do with the picks now. I mean, personally, I don't want to give too much advice away here as a European, but I think this is an unbelievable opportunity for America to blood some young players. You're coming up against, there's some good international players, and it's never easy to win these team competitions, but America is so strong. And it's a great opportunity. Even guys who might not deserve to be on the team, but if you see real potential and you see potential team players going forward, this is a chance to throw them in at the deep end and kind of get them a little bit acquainted with the other players and with team environments and still win the President's Cup. It's a real opportunity. It'll be interesting to see what decisions Brandt is going to make. I know Jim Furyk is there in the background as the vice captain. I'm sure he will have some opinions too, but I do see it as a huge opportunity for America, playing at home in the President's Cup against certainly a weakened team because of LIV that the internationals are going to be, to maybe try and test some new partnerships and blood some young players that could well prepare them to hit the ground running better when it comes to Adair next year.
Last thing, the first time I played golf in Ireland was the year that you were on that Walker Cup team at Port Marnock. My first round in Ireland was at Lahinch. It was raining sideways, coming down in buckets. And when it was over, I looked at my dad and I said, "Where are we playing tomorrow?" Paul, just why are you contributing? It's really kind of rhetorical. I know why. You love it. You love the place. You love the event. But tell people a little bit about why this event there is going to be so special.
Well, it's Lahinch. I mean, we call Lahinch the St. Andrews of Ireland. I don't want to use a quirky name to put on it, but it is different. Just like St. Andrews is different, Lahinch is different. There's a few blind tee shots. It's got a great history. It's got a great historic designer who was also aligned with Augusta. And the 18th hole was right up the middle of the town. All the pubs and restaurants and stuff are kind of around it. When I was running the Irish Open in 2019, I pushed hard Keith Pelly, who was the chief executive at the time, to bring it down there. It's like everybody's favourite auntie in Ireland, Lahinch is. Everybody wants to go and play that golf course for that reason. And I just thought it would have been a great Irish Open if we got the opportunity to go down there and create this atmosphere, this Irish atmosphere around it. And it turned out to be a great success. And Jon Rahm won the tournament. And it was a great prelude to a couple of weeks later going up to a lot of players got prepared, including Shane Lowry, to go up a few weeks later to Royal Portrush and play the Open. And Shane obviously went on to win. So it was a great success. So we're looking forward, and I'm delighted that the RNA have decided to give the Walker Cup to Lahinch. I think it's going to be very deserving. I'm looking forward to it. Now, I'm there doing TV. I'm looking forward to doing that. I love team events, as you know. I'm an ex-Walker Cup player, which I'm very proud of. And I also know Dean Robertson very well from when I played on tour. I played on tour for 7 or 8 years with Dean when he was playing on tour. So I know him, and I follow the amateur game. I follow what happened at Cypress Point. And we've had a couple of conversations and a number of texts in. So I'm not actively involved fully officially, but I'm certainly giving him some pointers of lessons that we might have learned from the Ryder Cup that could translate in terms of managing players and managing the difficult dynamic that team golf is when it comes to golf. Yeah,
it is. It's one of the arteries to the town. It really it permeates. It's so close. Yeah. I know how much Rich Lerner. I was at that Irish Open, and he was gushing every single day of that broadcast. He couldn't get enough of calling the golf and then wandering back into town. And I know that doesn't surprise you at all. Thank you, Paul, as always. I always appreciate the time. Hope I see you sooner than later.
You will, Gary. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me on. Good luck with the show.
Thank you. Paul McGinley, of course, victorious European Ryder Cup captain at Glen Eagles in 2014. And those were winning words presented by Century Insurance. We continue on this Tuesday right after this. Back in on 5 Clubs on this Tuesday on Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. And that is where you can hear the guy who's joining me now. Noon, Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesday. It is Gravy in the Sleeves, and of course, a huge part of the CBS golf broadcast team. I thought about wearing a V-neck, a crew neck, and a quarter zip cashmere just for him, just to layer up for him. He, of course, is Colt Knost. My friend, how you feeling?
I'm good, Gary. Happy to be on with you. I was hoping you were going to say you were going to wear like a black T-shirt and a hat just to really, make me feel comfortable. But you look great as always. It's good to be on with you.
It's good to have you. Look, you're in the last stretch here of what has been a tremendous season. But I want to start with the guy who just won, because you know most all these guys exceptionally well. Your radio partner, Drew Stoltz, knows Wyndham Clark really, really well. What has stood out about the way that he wins these golf tournaments? He's got, people in the crowd against him. He loses leads. He picks himself up. What stands out about how he's doing this?
Well, I would say this season it's his resiliency. You go back a year ago when he was in, I would say, a rather dark place, getting a lot of scrutiny amongst media, fans for his actions that happened on and off the golf course. And then this year comes out, resets, and he has just been playing phenomenal golf. The only thing that he's done that is a little worrisome is how he handles these big leads. He had the 6-shot lead at the U.S. Open, 5-shot lead this past week in St. Louis, and he really struggled with that. But to get off to the start he did, this weekend, even on Saturday, making double and then coming back and just putting together a phenomenal round. And then on Sunday, he's got Rory McIlroy staring him right in the eyes. He's got 90% of that crowd, I would say, rooting for Rory McIlroy around Bellerive on Sunday. And he bogeys the first. And then the thing that impressed me the most, and I said this, I believe, to Jim, is he bogeyed the first, and then he's walking through the gallery high-fiving everyone and smiling. And I was like, that wouldn't have happened a year ago. That would have been head down, angry that he made bogey, and it probably would have affected him the rest of the day. But even though he didn't have his best stuff, he hung in there, and then to have that finish, my goodness, that was impressive.
It certainly was. Because you do the radio show and you're so immersed in everything, even if the broadcast team isn't necessarily doing these playoff events, you have a sense of the atmosphere and everything. St. Louis worked. And I'm just curious, as you look back on this, because your career started as a professional and they built this thing. And I think in large measure because they wanted Tiger when footballs are being thrown around America in September to play golf, and now it's in August. What has worked about all this?
That's a good question. Nobody ever seems to be happy with the playoff format. And look, I'm one. Like I want there to be more action. I want it to be easier to follow. Look, it's been awesome to see the last 3 events of what we consider the real PGA Tour season mean something. And for the most part, all the big dogs show up and play. So you go to these markets, whether it's Memphis, St. Louis, Atlanta, and these fans get to see the best in the world tee it up to end their season. And so that part works. There's just some other things I think that we need to change, and I don't have all the answers for that, but there's going to need to be some change just to, I think, make this thing more entertaining and really get people fired up about the playoffs. But I'll tell you this, you mentioned St. Louis. It is awesome. The fans show up. They broke all kinds of records. I think you got to give BMW a lot of credit for being willing to move the golf tournament around, change venues every single year. And everywhere they go, they do it right. And they bring out massive crowds, and their tournaments are special.
Yeah, you're right. I was saying this to Brendan Porath, and look, I'm a nerd. I'm looking at all this stuff, but I think it matters to people on the ground. I think it matters to viewers. They know how to present a golf tournament, the way they wrap things, the way that they've got their stands, and it's important that the stands are full. BMW knows how to build an event.
I was at an event for BMW this past Wednesday, interviewing Scythe Thagala. And the first thing I said to them when I walked in, I said, who builds y'all's stuff, y'all's infrastructures? Because why is it not like this every week? I mean, I think it's Phoenix Open and the BMW, and nobody else is close.
I'm with you. Let me ask you about this whole thing about Player of the Year. You'll kick it around on the radio show. It gets resuscitated because Wyndham jumps up after Scottie dusted everybody in Memphis. How do you look at this as somebody who voted year in and year out? I love the fact that it is a member vote. You're voting for the guys who do it like you do, and who do you think did it best? How do you think this thing's going to shake out?
Well, I think it's going to be determined this week in Atlanta. I really do. I think they both need to go out. I think it's a 2-man race. I think it's Scottie Scheffler at Wyndham Clark. Now, if Cam Young goes out there and wins, he's going to obviously have an argument. I think the thing that hurts Rory McIlroy is he's not going to play the minimum number of events. Yep. And his peers are going to know that. And they're going to be like, nope, you're out. Matt Fitzpatrick, 3 wins. If he goes out and wins this week, he could obviously be a part of the conversation. But I really think just as a player, these guys respect Scottie Scheffler so much for his consistency and how he is at the top of pretty much every single statistical category. And there's no days off. I mean, I know he missed the cut at the Scottish Open, but other than that, like, he played bad this past week and he finished tied for 12th. I mean, every other guy's missing cuts. Rory had the tough week at Memphis, but I think people just admire Scottie's consistency so much that he puts himself in the mix every single tournament. Now, Wyndham Clark, 3 wins, which include a major, and I promise you Scottie Scheffler would much rather have that major championship in 2026. If he goes out and plays well this week, I think he's got a great chance. But as you mentioned, it's a player vote. The players have their feelings about other players. I'm not saying Wyndham is disliked amongst the players. Wyndham is very popular amongst the players, but he's not Scottie Scheffler. So if they both play really solid this week, I still think the edge is going to go to Scottie Scheffler. I just think that's who's going to win. Should he? I don't know. They've both had phenomenal seasons. Wyndham Clark to do what he's done after the year he had last year. I just respect it so much. Yeah,
me too. CBS, you guys have such a robust schedule. I mean, it's a lot of events. So you've seen a lot. Are there a couple of wins? It might have been because they were the beginning of the year, or because you focus on big names and the marquee that we don't spend enough time talking about. Like I wrote down a list because I was going to ask you this. Give me some wins that you're like, that needs to be recognized more.
Well, I think because he's so quiet and he's still new, and I feel like the fans don't know a lot about him. But Chris Gotterup, I mean, the win at Phoenix, like it's a big time event.
Yes.
You're playing in front of more people than you do all year long, and he won the Scottish Open last year, which was great. But that doesn't hit home with the American audience as much as a Phoenix Open. And now you're going to see him on the President's Cup team. I mean, he's been up there in major championships. Like, this kid is a stud. And Trevor and I were actually watching him hit balls on Saturday, and I just looked at him. I was like, this guy's for real. Like, it's impressive. And there's not, because they're all so good out there, you don't have that reaction all the time. And I just love watching him play. He's old school. He's not 6'3" and chiseled like all the other guys out there. So I respect that a little more as well. He's not scared of a cheat meal occasionally. And he's just such a great dude. And I was so pumped for him. Obviously, I'm very biased. Gary Woodland is one of my best friends in the world. And the win at Houston, I actually got a great question the week after he won. They're like, how would you have handled that if you would have been like walking or on the covers? I'm like, I honestly don't know if I could have spoke. And that would have probably said a lot right there, because I do know everything he's gone through. And man, I'm pumped for him.
Let's stay right there, because I think, and this really doesn't have anything to do with what he's navigating, which is, this is real life stuff. And you know it intimately, what he's been dealing with. I honestly think he should be on the President's Cup team. If you look, first of all, there's a handful of guys in points, and I have some misgivings about the way the points are. I think the system is too long. You're dragging points from previous seasons. There are 4 guys in front of him in points that are not at Eastlake, and he is. In addition to the fact that he won this year, 6 top 10s. He's legitimately contended more than just the win itself. And the venue, Colt, he's built for Medina. I know that you probably feel the same way, and whether it's biased or not, I don't care. He should be on the team.
I mean, I would love to see him on the team. The work him and Randy Smith have done together over the last year or so to get him back to where he is. In my opinion, he's playing the best golf of his career. And I mean, he's a guy who won a major championship in 2019, but obviously getting everything off his chest to Rex Hoggard earlier this year really freed him up. But just to go out there, and like I said, I think I know him a little better than a lot of people out there. And I told this to Frank watching him this weekend. Like, he is battling PTSD. He's always going to battle PTSD. He has good days. He has bad days. Everyone has good days and bad days. Yep. But for him, it's different. And I walked on the range Saturday, and I was worried. I did not like what I saw. And he went out there, and he struggled. And Sunday, I went back to the range, and it was a totally different person. He was laughing. I could see the joy in his eyes. He was cutting up with me. And I get back to the booth, and I said, Frank, Gary Woodland's going to play well today. And God, other than the top, I mean, what the hell was that? I got to tell you my story with him real quick, because him and I, as friends do, like, you're not going to let anything slide. And so as soon as he signed his scorecard, I texted him. I said, great playing. See you in Atlanta. By the way, I just want to let you know I reached out to Mark Long, who does all the yardage books, and I thought it was ridiculous there wasn't a carry number on that creek. And that will never happen again. It was 102 yards to carry that creek, by the way.
As somebody who sees all these guys, and you talk to all of them, are there a few players that you've seen this year that you focused on maybe for the first time that you think are not only going to make a living doing this long term, but have a chance to continue to ascend in a way that they could be top 20, top 15 players in the world? Are there a couple guys?
Yeah, I think one who just dominated at LA earlier this year at the Genesis, Jacob Bridgman. I just love his game. He is so chill. I don't think anything really bothers him. And the putter is a weapon. I mean, he's the best putter on the PGA Tour. We've known about Sam Burns for several years, but I think these close calls at majors, once again, are going to take him to another level. I just love watching him play golf, the way his pace of play, for one, but there is just no hold back. He's just a good old Southern boy. Jackson Coyven, obviously coming up now. I was one after he won Minnesota. I was like, he's President's Cup, put him on there. But he kind of didn't play his best after that, but he's got all the tools. He is going to be a star in this game.
Before I let you go, because we had McGinley on, and he was on a Walker Cup team, so were you, and your team, pretty good squad that you had. What is the one thing about that experience that means the most to you?
Yeah, that's funny. I actually saw Buddy Marucci, who was our captain,
I'll be damned,
over at Royal County Down this past week in St. Louis. Saw him several times. Actually played in the group behind him at St. Louis Country Club on Friday. What a golf course, by the way. Shout out to them. But the Walker Cup, man, I tell everybody, winning the USAM was special, but to represent your country is a whole nother level. And to be a part of that group, to go over there with Dustin Johnson, Ricky Fowler, Webb Simpson, and Buddy as the captain, who was phenomenal. It's something I'll never forget, and I'm always so proud to be on that team. And the only thing I wish they would change about the Walker Cup is to make it longer. 2 days is not enough.
Agreed.
They need to play on Friday.
No, I'm totally with you. Thank you. It's good to catch up. Not easy with you being on the left side, me being on the right. By the way, Selwyn Pub and Stake 48, they said they'll leave the light on for you. You know
I will
that.
be back soon. By the way, can you tell Nance to let me borrow the bird every once in a while, get home a little easier?
That would be nice. A good captain, a good teammate certainly would do that. Have a great final event there in Atlanta, and enjoy the rest when you get it.
Thank you, Gary. Always a pleasure.
All right, there is Colt Knost. Of course, his show, noons Eastern, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on Sirius XM's Channel 92 with Drew Stoltz, Gravy and the Sleaze, and a big part of the CBS Golf broadcast team. We continue here on this Tuesday on 5 Clubs, Golf Channel, PGA Tour Radio, right after this. Back in on this Tuesday, Golf Channel, PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92. Tomorrow on the program, much to get to, starting with the fact that Frank Nobilo from CBS Sports will be with us, as well as the International President's Cup captain, Jeff Ogilvy. Looking forward to their thoughts on a number of things, and of course with Jeff focusing on his team, but also Medina and the fact that their design team reimagined Medina number 3. So Nobilo and Ogilvy on a Wednesday, plus we got dogs, we got picks as well. Our getaway day. Reminder, coming up in just a couple of minutes, Golf Today. Those guys are going to start at 9 a.m. Eastern Time live. Damon Hack, Rex Hoggard. They will take you right up until Brian Rolap's presser at the top of the following hour. And then after Brian Rolap speaks, and fields questions, he will take more because he is going to join Rich Lerner and Brandel Chambly live there. So that all coming up when we're done here in just a couple of minutes. As it relates to what we expect to hear from Brian Rolap, and Again, I wait like you, but there are a few things that it appears are abundantly clear, and that is the fact that match play is coming. And I think that match play, if you go back to the way that when they had that World Golf Championship event, and Wednesday, everyone said it's the best Wednesday in golf. There wasn't any competition. What Wednesdays are they competing against other than some amateur events? And yes, it was better before there was pool play, and the idea that there was real jeopardy. You had a field of 64, and all of a sudden 32 guys, vamoose, they're gone. And then all of a sudden Tiger's getting punted a couple of times on a Wednesday, and you're going, this isn't good for business. We need some pool play. Everyone will play for 3 days, and we'll patty cake it around, and then we will decide who's going home after 3 days of golf. I think when you get the match play, as Brian Rolap is going to explain here within the hour or so, is that there are ways to incentivize. And look, the idea of incentivizing players who take weeks off when there are no cuts and the purses are what? 20 to 25 million? That's the world we live in now. But I do think that the more you have beyond one, which would seem painful, the old consolation match in the match play, when you have everybody engaged in it. And then I also think the other part of this, which we're not going to get definitively in terms of knowing where these venues are, I think we're going to have to wait until, the beginning of 2027 for that, is the idea that the venue can be that. And that's one of the things that I have repeatedly said about the PGA Tour schedule. Look, I think it's worthwhile to want to be in places like Philadelphia and Boston and New York and Chicago and Denver and Seattle. I get all of that. But to me, the venue is the market. The venue creates the market. It creates the market for the consumer. Most importantly, the ones who are there on site. And even if it's a more modest build out, because the people who are there on site then create somewhat of a market for those who are viewing it. Because I can tell you, as somebody who's been consuming all of this for quite some time, St. Louis was better because it had a buzz and it had juice. And guess what? The guy who was leading going into Sunday, it appeared had a stranglehold on the whole affair until he didn't. If you get the right venue and you get 32 down to 16, which it appears we're going to get in detail coming up here, those things can work. So we wait and see. Again, Golf Today coming up next, and then Brian Rolapp is going to join after his presser, Rich Lerner and Brandel Chambly, to expound further on what it is that we're going to get starting in 2028, from the importance of the end of the regular season to what we'll get after that. And then again tomorrow, looking forward to Jeff Ogilvy. And how do you construct an International President's Cup team to end this merciless streak of U.S. wins? For all of us here at Signature Sports Group and 5 Clubs, have a great rest of your Tuesday. Golf Today coming up next. We'll see you tomorrow.